And we want to take just a few minutes to update you on a project I actually began a few decades ago now, and that is writing the story, the book of Holocaust survivor Anita Dittman. And you have heard her on this program many times, heard her at my conferences. Many of you met her back on October the 7th at my most recent conference. She was there signing books, etc. And she experienced an amazing story, saved as a young girl, suffering under Adolf Hitler, left on her own as a teenager. Her mother was taken to a concentration camp. Anita was then taken eventually to a work camp. She escaped. She walked across Europe to find her mother, not knowing if she was alive or a victim of a gas chamber. This is all captivated in the book that we carry here. I wrote it, titled Trapped in Hitler's Hell, and a moving documentary goes along with it. You can get individually or separately, produced by George Escobar, who's here for an update on the made-for-theater version that WorldNet Daily, WND, hopes to make a reality in the next year. So, George Escobar, welcome back to the program.
Thank you, Jan, for having me. So good to be back with you.
Yeah, we need an update from you, and you are talking to major investors, and my understanding is they want you to do some fundraising, which you are doing on your own through GoFundMe. We'll get to that in a moment, because ultimately millions of dollars are needed to do this properly. Give us a quick update, and then I'll ask you some specific questions.
Sure. Well, one of the things that's happened is after our fourth major rewrite of the screenplay for Trap, we got some input from a top executive who's worked on some of the best recent faith films, such as God's Not Dead, Heaven is for Real, War Room. We wanted to get an opinion from a completely independent script company based in Hollywood. They're called Screenplay Readers. They do script analysis for studios and big-time producers. So they read our script for a fee, but the script report they came back with, it's about 4 to 6 pages analyzing every aspect of the script, story, structure, character arcs, dialogue, action, all the elements in the movie. And typically a script will get 3 types of grades: a pass, consider, or recommend. Now, of the thousands of scripts read by these professional script readers, about 4% get a consider grade. And we were so blessed because Trapped is one of them. So they wrote in the report that if we make the revisions that they suggested, which we thought were good ones, then they said Trapped could easily go into the recommend category. And only 1% of scripts get that kind of designation.
Well, I've had Anita on here before. I've had you on. I had Rose Reed on. She's going to play Anita in this film, should it come about. And Rose is a fascinating young gal. She's a teenager herself. Everybody enjoyed really meeting her. You say this, and by the way, George, as you know, we played some of the promotional material you've made online. We played that at my conference back on October 7th so we could get even more people familiar with all of this. We'll say more about the fundraising here as we kind of close out the program. But here's what you state, you write, because you're making some comparisons to Nazi Germany and today, and that's, I think, hugely important. You say the country is in turmoil. Every day it seems to be getting worse. Anita went through the same thing as a child and teen in Germany as it became a Nazi state. Today in America, factions of militant hate are once again ascending, targeting Jews and Christians alike, and people are becoming polarized and scared. Fake news, fake politicians, fake truths are being propagated. And then you say, we believe that God has ordained and is making provision for a story like Trapped in Hitler's Hell to be told precisely at this time so we can make a difference. Talk to me about how it will make a difference.
Well, I think basically, God lives in the past, present, and future, and it's not accidental that God made himself known to Anita during the perilous times of the Holocaust, World War II. It was her belief in Jesus as the Messiah is what saved her and sustained her during the Holocaust and obviously afterwards. So, God is the same then, now, and in the future. And we believe that this project will be an encouragement to people everywhere. To those who are listening right now, I think this is an appointed time that God has set aside for you to become involved, and we really would encourage you to please help us tell God's story through Anita in this movie project.
I think it's one thing, George, to be enthused about reliving history, about exposing a dark time, about showing the wonderfully uplifting side of this story, and it is. Folks, the subtitle is A Young Jewish Girl Discovers the Messiah's Faithfulness in the Midst of the Holocaust. This is not a dark story. This is incredibly uplifting. It's another thing to show how it applies to today, as you're trying to do. You've just stated that. I think that This is a time of, it's over 70 years ago. It's probably 80 years ago now. It goes back to the 1930s and 1940s. So there are some people listening right now. They weren't alive at that time. They have only been alive for the last 30 years. How do you talk to them?
Well, I think having the kind of country that we have now and the things that are going on and the fact that we have, racial tensions and that the kind of politicization of people's belief and certainly, Christians being under siege, those are all real things that people are experiencing, and they have seen it progressively get worse, if they've been around for 30 years. I think prayers are being answered, and God is saying, I'm here, and I want to make myself known to you, and this is one of the ways that he's doing that. Through Anita, through you, Jan, and your faithfulness in sustaining the story for decades now, and being patient. God's timing is always perfect, and your continued support to try and get more and more people become aware of this, I think, is one of the wonderful ways now that we have communication, through the internet that didn't exist decades ago. So there's lots of things that are going on, and we're all listening and participants in it, but we need to do more, I think, as people become more aware. And that's one of the things that actually is in the story is the awareness that Anita had even as a child, and then she stood up. She had the courage to stand up against the Nazi regime as a young person. And we need to have the same thing for our faith.
This is a life-changing book, folks. Trapped in Hitler's Hell, a young Jewish girl discovers the Messiah's faithfulness in the midst of the Holocaust. You can get it here at Olive Tree Ministries. You can get it in our store. You can call us. George Escobar's Companion documentary DVD. Get that here as well. Give us a call. Find it in our store. Find it in our newsletters. They want to make a life-changing movie. George, it's going to have a salvation-type theme through it, correct? And how Anita found the Lord and how others can find salvation as well.
Absolutely. The fact that a pastor, when Pastor Ernst Hornig, a true historical figure, was brave enough, again, to take that stand against the growing Nazi threat, and when other churches, were shy about that or were scared to do any action, the same thing now. We need to be brave and embrace this kind of story and the kind of courage and God's faithfulness really shining through.
Well, I think listeners think, when they hear us say, they heard me say, this type of a project takes millions of dollars, yet their $10 gift or $25 or $100 gift could actually help this project through a GoFundMe that you've set up. Can you talk to us about that, how they find that?
So there's been a GoFundMe page that has been created for this movie, and people have been donating. And in fact, the conference attendees that you had at the Understanding the Times conference in early October, in one day they contributed $4,000. We have a goal of $120,000 for this phase of the project. As you said, it takes millions to actually make the movie in terms of production, but it takes a lot of money also. We've finished the story development phase, writing the screenplay and the storyboarding and the whole creative endeavor to then be able to show it to people and investors in particular. But to go through the whole investing process to raise those millions of dollars, it does take funds for legal expenses, travel just to meet with investors, film finance companies, promotional materials, doing some early location scouting here in the U.S., and we're looking at Hungary, Poland, Czech Republic as actual location settings. Just getting this in front of casting directors and actors and actresses to have a high name recognition. So it's really important that people realize that even with the small amounts that they can contribute in the GoFundMe, that'll help quite a bit in taking us to the next stage.
How do they find the GoFundMe?
Well, there is a website that we've set up called, they just have to go to GoFundMe, but I think you're going to put a link on it also on your ministry page. But it's, GoFundMe.com/make-a-hit-movie with WND. It's rather long, or I think just, they can do a search on GoFundMe.
Yep, they can do a search on GoFundMe, and I'm sure the link will come up. How do you want to wrap this up, George?
Well, I would encourage people to continue praying for this project, to go visit GoFundMe, and also to share this story with other people through the book and the documentary that's already been made.